Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Insights from Women Leaders event. My name is Rola Kaakeh, and I'm the CEO of Salus Vitae Group, and I'll be the host for the event. Now, for those joining us again, welcome back. And for those that are new to the series, welcome. We're very happy that you are joining us for this conversation. Now, a little background on the Insights from Women Leaders series that we launched in October, so about 2 months ago. And the purpose behind it is to highlight the journeys and contributions of various women leaders in healthcare. Now, these industry experts will share their insights on a range of topics impacting healthcare, our communities, and their role in shaping the future. We've already had 8 guest leaders thus far, all providing valuable perspectives. So I really encourage you to watch the recordings. They're all available on our website if you missed it or are interested to hear more from our various guest leaders. We do have one more this week, and that is tomorrow, and that will be the final Insights from Women Leaders event for 2020. They have been exceptional. They have been so great. They have varied from pharmacists to physicians to public health experts, and so even within the technology space. So I really encourage you, if you haven't attended any or would like to learn more, to visit our website. Now today, over the course of an hour, I will speak with our guest leader and ask a number of questions. I'm going to start with the questions, and then we actually open it up to audience questions. So please submit any questions that you may have in the Q&A box at any point during our conversation, but we will get to them towards the end of the discussion. Now, we encourage you both during and after the event to post any takeaways that you may have from the event in the Q&A box and on various social media platforms, and tag us at Salus Vitae Group. We always love to hear how you benefited from the various insights and experiences of our distinguished leaders. Now, the session will be recorded and available for replay after the event. So right now, let's get started for today's session. I'm very pleased to introduce and welcome our guest leader today, Nilhan Uzman. Nilhan is the Global Lead for Education Policy and Implementation at the International Pharmaceutical Federation, or FIP. She is a pharmacist trained in Turkey. Her primary focus is developing and delivering FIP's strategy towards advancing pharmaceutical education globally, regionally, and at country level by working closely with academics, educators, pharmacy schools, professional associations, health and education partners, as well as young professionals and pharmacy students. Nilhan has established FIP's Women in Science and Education, or FIP WiSE initiative, to empower women in these fields to achieve their potential, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. She is leading the FIP UNESCO-UNITWIN Programme, which aims at improving academic capacity, implementing needs-based education strategies, and establishing enabling advocacy environments through educational partnerships to advance education and the profession with focus on the LMICs, or I think that's the low middle income countries. She is leading FIP's Digital Health and Pharmacy Education workstream. So welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Rola. It was a long bio, and sorry for the abbreviations.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. So what we do, we ask our guest leaders very similar questions in terms of a framework, but obviously the conversation is driven by the guest leader in terms of the content and their experiences. But after we have introduced our guest leaders, and as you notice with your bio, we talk a lot about what you've done, what you're doing. Even as you listen to it now, did you expect to be where you are today?
Thanks for the question. Before we start, I wanted to thank you, also Lucinda Main, who have connected us for this session. So thank you for the invitation. It's always nice to be in this kind of conversations. It's very reflective, and I hope it's going to be helpful for others. I also wanted to say hi to the participants. I see familiar names, so thanks for joining. I'm really happy to see familiar names here. Coming from different countries. Coming to our first question, I think I'll start with the short answer. The short answer is yes. I think I expected to be where I am today, and then I'll share the long answer by doing a little bit throwback 2 years before. So it's been 8 years since I graduated, but there is more to that, of course, in my student life, also in my life when I was a kid. I had a passion, first of all, and I was influenced by a family member who have moved to abroad, moved to US when I was really young. So I was amazed because, I'm from Turkey and, I always lived where I was. So going to a family member going to US was really amazed me. And I was, I think, around 10 years old. So that just amazed me so much. So that was always a part of my mind. How can I go there? How can I explore a little bit more other parts of the world? So that passion always stayed with me. And when I started my studies in pharmacy, I always try to seek for, activities, anything that feeds my curiosity, because naturally I'm a curious person. So, yes, I'm going to become a pharmacist, but how? So I always looked for opportunities that can take me to my main goal, to be abroad. So I was always, getting involved in students, associations, activities, anything national, regional, more European level or global. And the global one has a lot of meaning to me, but I didn't know back then where it would lead me. It was back in 2009, where there was the FIP Congress in Istanbul. So I was a first or second year, I was a second year student back then. And I joined there as a student staff, or as a team member to work in the Congress, and I was representing the Turkish Pharmacist Association there. So it just started there because it just sparked my curiosity so much, being in the FIP world, in the international arena of pharmacy, meeting amazing colleagues, hearing things I never heard before, and I was barely speaking English there. So that just left me speechless. So after that moment, I always put all of my effort in, trying to get to where I am. And I only realized it when I had a lot of time to reflect this year and when I was asked these kind of questions. So I'm really happy to get where I am. I mean, there are lots of stories I can share in the middle. For example, my predecessor at FIP was one of my colleagues from a student association. So I get to hear about the position from her. So these kind of networks, this curiosity and the engagements I made since then, I think they just brought me here. It's a combination of luck, but I also worked hard for it. And I knew what I wanted, I think, and I was never afraid to try. I mean, I had tons of fails. It was never an easy journey, I must say, but I just, hold fast and straight through to myself and where I wanted to be. It's been more than 10 years now when I look back, and I'm glad that I reached my goal. And now I'm in a period of shooting for my next 10 years at the moment, with all learnings and trying to get wisdom of other leaders, especially women leaders who share the similar journey. So I really feel lucky that I have also pathfinders around me to show me the way. But that's my story to start.
Well, I definitely like, so you've combined a lot of the themes also we've talked with other guest leaders on, and I think it's kind of consistent. Is there's leaders that didn't necessarily expect to be where they are in terms of taking on new opportunities, but those that did have a general theme. They really wanted it, and they were so intentional. And they acted, like they were very sure of acting towards that one particular thing. And I think that's kind of what has been consistent with what you were saying too. And the element of curiosity is also very beautiful in terms of what you've said, in terms of enjoying that process, because curiosity makes you continue to seek right? Like out maybe new opportunities or opportunities that will allow you to go towards that one goal. So I really like how you address that. And you actually made a really good transition to kind of the next category of questions that we generally ask our guest leaders, is that we have them thinking about the future, because we touched a little bit about what brought you here today. But when you now are reflecting, and like you mentioned, you're now wanting to think about the next 10 years, or even, you know, your legacy overall. What is in your future? What do you want your legacy to be?
I can share about what's in my head about at an individual level and also maybe a professional level. Individually, I think I realized that I have been a quite privileged person with, you know, access to education, support, opportunities. Of course, I seek for it, but I think I was privileged. So that just my worldview changed because I thought, yes, you know, I tried and I get them all, but there was an element of privilege there. So I just want to use the privilege I have for others. You know, how I can influence others, how I can support others, how I can, you know, open doors for others. It's either at a professional or individual level, because I think one of the things that really matters to me is, you know, keeping things sustainable. So, you know, I can do something, and then, you know, when that time is over of me doing that thing, I don't want it to end. So I always try to pass the baton to the others, so they can do even better and more than me. So that is really where I'm going towards my future at an individual level. Professional level, I think it's just very similar theme, but in a more professional way. I'm really passionate about, you know, building growth mindsets. You know, implementing minds that are brilliant and that are seeing things differently. It can be either by me or through me, it doesn't matter, but I really want to be in that process. And I can see my future, you know, that I innovate through partnerships to achieve some kind of social impact. That's really where I want to go, so I can, you know, touch patients, also pharmacists. At the moment, I'm in the healthcare and pharmacist environment, but that may also change because the world is so complex and fluid. But I really, you know, I'm really passionate about this social impact of things at individual and personal level. I'm listening to a lot of futurists right now to, you know, to see what kind of signals we have in terms of change, what solutions I can support. But as I said, I'm really in the process of also seeing where I am going. So it's hard to give a very concrete answer, but I'm looking around this main theme. So innovation, partnerships, social impact, both individual and professional level. So that's the legacy I would leave would be, you know, brilliant minds and growth mindsets, I think.
Yeah, that is great. And I think the fact that you mentioned understanding our own privilege, and I think that looks very different to different people, but we all have a gift somehow, and that could be our privilege in a way. And then the environments that we're in, the people we know, what we're able to contribute beyond, and the power that has in building something that's sustainable and beyond us, I think is very, very nicely noted within your legacy and what you hope to achieve. So as you then think about kind of privilege and the connections and kind of where you've positioned yourself to allow yourself to grow, have your past experiences or really shaped that outlook? Have you had success with that you kind of now see, or is this something that you've kind of learned the hard way? What has been your experiences there?
I think my experience at FIP has been a major milestone for me to, you know, have this mindset, because, you know, working at an NGO, working with volunteers, really doing things because it's the right thing to do has shaped my outlook significantly. And especially FIP is an organization that, open doors to wherever you want to go, whatever you would like to learn, whomever you would like to work with. So it's quite flexible because we always try to do the best and advance the profession. So that just connected me with great individuals like now, and I'm chatting with you. So it broadened my horizons significantly. I mean, among the participants, I have colleagues that I worked with. I know it's social media level, some of them we never even met. So those have been really horizon widening experiences to me to, have that outlook. I think I have a more colorful mindset now in terms of working with different cultures, different needs, and in a diverse and inclusive way. So that really shaped my mind, and I see things out of, where I was looking. And also the social impact mindset also, I think, came from working at an NGO. I was always involved in, volunteer activities at a student level. I had a gap where I started my professional career in pharmaceutical industry. There I kind of disconnected myself from the profession and this kind of volunteer activities towards, pharmacy, because I really like it. But I always have that in my nature. But I think FIP experience amplified it. So I'm really, really, really grateful to be in this organization. Also, you can see our office in the background.
Yes.
That I really miss. So I just wanted to also put it there to share it with everyone here as well.
I love the term colorful mindset. Like that is so wonderful. And I think because oftentimes when you want to design something, when you want to paint something, when you're using different colors and depending on how you want to create, I think that's so powerful. And then the growth mindset, I think if you're looking towards the future and you want to grow something, your mindset also has to adapt. So I think that those are very important points there. Now, looking into the future, what would you say excites you about the future? What are you looking forward to?
So, I mean, we have passed through a year. It's still happening. I think we have last 15 days. So, of course, I mean, after the end of the year, things will continue. But, with the pandemic and the complexities and the issues, problems the world is seeing through, at social level, at professional level, individual level, it's a little bit demotivating. Before we start, we were just chatting with you how it was challenging for us to stay so much at home. Even we are actually lucky because we are not in the front line and we can stay home. That's also a privilege, I think. But everybody has their own challenges, despite the comparisons. But despite all of these issues, when I see visionary leaders, individuals, pathfinders around me, it just excites me because, I mean, people still have hope. They still want to change something. They are trying to change their mindset. Even, they are also, as a part of this situation, they seek for, areas that they can change. People put in new processes to innovate, to change things that are not working, making things more efficient. That is really, really exciting, I think. Despite this tremendously challenging year, there is motivation, there is hope. So it's just excites me. It gives me hope and motivation for the future. I watched this David Attenborough documentary, A Life on Our Planet. It was on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. In the beginning, it shows about the catastrophe we are going through in terms of climate change and the environment and the damages. So I was feeling like, oh my God, another climate change documentary that is going to break my heart. And, I feel guilty sometimes. I feel like, what am I going to do now? So that was that kind of a documentary. But at the end, it gives a powerful message and leads you to show you what can be done, because there is still things to be done. After watching that documentary, I also changed my mindset a little bit myself as well. I see things like this is a period, small period in our lives, and it's going to pass away. So, you know, we can still try to change things and don't just, you know, give up. So that also explains my mindset a little bit, and how I, you know, explained the exciting part of the future for me.
Yeah, that's so great. And I think with crisis comes opportunity, right? Like you hear that all the time. But I think how you mentioned in terms of the time we've also taken to self-reflect, I think has been a big part too during this pandemic, right? People have had a lot more time to sit and self-reflect, to think about their privilege, think about what they can do, educate themselves on huge issues at hand, be it social, be it health, whatever it is, like you mentioned. And I think that you can either see it in a positive light towards the future and get excited that the fact that, you know, we now understand things better. People are at different levels, but people are trying and they're working towards that. But when we work together, back to your initial point, you know, amazing things can happen. I think the vaccine is a prime example right now of people's ability to work together and how that accelerates things. And I think that can transfer across the board, like you mentioned. But it is truly a change of mindset, but also recognizing exactly like you said, that what is it that we need to do, right? It is the actual action. And that's the part that's quite exciting as well. Now, when we think about these, we think about all the challenges that we're facing and we're thinking about moving forward. Are there specific items, skills, tools that you usually tell people, like, you know, have these on your toolbox, or make sure that you kind of build these skills as you move into the future? What are some?
I think, I mean, this can be applied in anything in terms of, you know, considering how to move forward. I think I have a kind of a process, a natural process, to check in with what is working, what isn't working, so that I can open space to activities that can take me forward. That is really I think that's also requires a growth mindset, I think. So that just it's a natural process, but of course it came over time. So I take time to do that prioritization activity with myself, with my colleagues, with my line manager, just to, you know, create space for new things and trying to change things that is not working. That's one kind of tool or process that I use for myself. Another thing is, of course, this is the how part, but then there is the where part. Where are we going? And I really also take time to, you know, monitor sources of disruption, trends, signals in a systematic way. Here at FIP, our team volunteers, we have quite a lot of brainstorming, so we can also, you know, ready to act speedily on things. So there is a very dynamic environment here for the things I explained to you, for prioritization and, you know, environmental scanning. So these are two tools that have helped me a lot, especially this year, because we had to constantly check in with things that we have been doing. And I think that was also some tools or skills I gained also through this crisis, I think, as I mentioned. Never waste a good crisis. That was our motto this year. So we were like quite dynamic and responsive to some changes. So those were two main approaches I've taken, also in my life, but also in my professional life.
So that brings us to the next set of questions in terms of looking at, you seem to be doing a lot of self-reflecting constantly throughout your years. You're very intentional about what you're doing. And so then when you think about success, right, and just sit back and just say the successful is not, how do you define success?
To me, success should be is like a win-win-win situation for myself, for my organization, for the audience I'm serving to, and also, you know, by me, I said my also professional development. So when I tick all of these 3 boxes, I feel like I really achieved something. And of course, I'm trying it and learning the hard way to, you know, to be really smart at setting targets and objectives. That's some area that I'm constantly trying to improve. And also I'm getting some mentorship around that as well. So it is really to, you know, understand the value that everybody wants to receive from whatever you are doing, and then trying to create and offer that value to everyone, also to myself. Sometimes this is it's a hard equation because there is always you know, one win bar is lower than the other win bar is bigger, so there is always a little bit compromise in between 3 of these. But those were, you know, when I look back and see, for example, the successful achievements from this year, they have always been triple win situations. So to me, that means success.
So for the next question, you also you've mentioned this briefly in terms of getting mentorship, like you said right now, or maybe learning new things. Are there other things that you do to create your own environment for success to enable to assist you in increasing the probability of success?
I think it takes a village to create the environment for success. It's the most important thing. You need the right people, right information, right supporters, enablers, and you have to be in the right moment of time. So to create that environment, I think it is really the most challenging part, I must say. I mean, I'm saying challenge, not coming from a negative way, but it's the positive part of it. You really have to, this is an art, I think, of creating the environment of success. So I really carefully select, or, you know, trying to be in environments where there are the right people. I always seek for, you know, right and assured resources of information. At FIP, we are receiving a lot of information from everywhere, but we have trusted organizations, so that is really, really helpful for us to, you know, follow the updates from all around the world. And of course, you know, at regional level, at national level, we'll have our colleagues that are also the sources of right information. And I think the secret sauce is really to have the right enablers. It could be a person, it can be a partner, but there is always someone, mostly at the leadership level, that unlock the challenges at that work. So I've been, for example, in many works that I've supported by my line manager, our CEO, Catherine Duggan, our volunteers, our officers, even my team members. So that was really, you know, the secret sauce of this environment. And you need to try to see whether it's the right time to achieve success. But you can only know by trying. So that is also the risky part.
I liked your reference to, this is all great, the reference to the enabler. And you also mentioned previously how you want to be an enabler for many. And oftentimes we forget that sometimes very successful, very high position leaders, they have a handful of conversations of certain people that helped them, or was that person that really promoted them, encouraged them, became kind of that sponsor, spoke on their behalf, that really helped them. Sometimes it's to give them motivation, sometimes it's give them information, sometimes to connect. So there's so much power in being that person, even for one or two. Like, you don't have to do that for thousands, but like you mentioned, being an enabler has ripple effects kind of beyond that and creating that. So obviously in your current position, you have so many initiatives that you guys are working on, but how do you begin to prioritize? You have a lot of interests, you have a lot of projects. What's your thought process when you start prioritizing what you spend your time on?
I think it's a matrix that has multiple factors in it. At FIP, we put, of course, firstly, and most importantly, the patients, the community at the center of our work. So that's one layer. And the other layer, what it's also, the cross-cutting, is the priorities of our members from around the world. So what do they need? What are their priorities? We always have a very systematic conversations with them at national, at regional, at global level. So then in that sphere, we look into most impactful work for health, in terms of healthcare, in terms of pharmacy as a profession, and also for our organization. So there are some mapping tick boxes we have. For example, recently we have launched the FIP development goals. That's basically the pharmacy version of the UN's United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So that's kind of our guiding star. We looked into those 21 goals and see how our work map with them, and if there are gaps, we prioritize those gaps and do something, an activity about that. So it's really, I think if it's a pyramid, it starts with patient, community in the center, then members, profession, health, and it just goes to prioritize for our organization as well. So that's the process we generally follow for our business planning as well.
Nice. And so what current initiatives are you working on that you are most excited about?
Well, I really like to talk about it. So I would like to talk about FIP WiSE initiative, FIP Women in Science and Education initiative. So FIP's journey so gender equity has been a priority focus area for FIP for many years. It started with our first female president, Carmen Peña, years ago, where she leads the work on supporting women in the community to be effective caregivers. So pharmacists have an important role to support women in the community, because generally women assumes the caretaking roles in families, in society. So that work stemmed from there. And again, the FIP development goals were used to be called FIP workforce development goals. And one of the workforce development goals, and we still have it in the FIP development goals, just the name change it. It's around equity, equality, and gender diversity balances. So that was also a goal that kind of always paved the way for us to our current activities. Then we have engaged with World Health Organization, WHO. They have a global network in collaboration with Women in Global Health that they launched a Gender Equity Hub. So FIP was involved there as a member, and then from that activities that just opened our opportunities, doors, and areas that we can do even further. And as part of my job, I'm the lead for education. So I'm working with pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences educators, researchers in this area. So we identified that in the education and pharmaceutical sciences research atmosphere, women have particular needs in terms of the workforce environment, the career development areas, and basically how to thrive. So putting all of these into a box, and after several brainstorming through our amazing volunteers, some of them are also in this call as well, we have launched the FIP Women in Science and Education initiative, FIP WiSE initiative. This year, actually, it's a pretty young initiative. On 11th of February, which is the United Nations International Day for Women and Girls in Science. So we picked that day to, to bring a lot of impact. And what we are trying to do with this initiative, FIP WiSE initiative, is really to, create a community and create awareness around the needs of women in science and education. And this is, of course, not woman for woman. This is all for women initiative. And of course, we are targeting the specific needs of our female colleagues. And what it basically aims is really how we can support women in science and education in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences so they can thrive. We are trying to empower them. And another main objective we have is we have realized, according to the research, female students generally don't pick STEM roles. So there are less women pursuing these roles. Also, in technology, in education, in science. So we said how we can also encourage young women to pursue careers in these areas. So that's one of our objectives. This year, we basically focused in building a strong community. And we do that now. We have done a lot of advocacy activity this year to, spread the word out. And in 2021, moving into our second year, we will be focusing on how we can build confidence in competence through some of activities like this one. And the next one will be also trying to remove the barriers in the workplace. So what kind of blockages there are, so we can, streamline those, and then women in science and education can thrive. And the next one is also to support youth through giving them platforms so they, they share their successes and again build their confidence. So those will be main 3 areas of focus for us. We have an amazing group of volunteers. It's just a powerhouse of women. Some of them are also in this call. So I really wanted to thank everyone because, it's just whenever we have the meetings with our FIP WiSE working group, everybody has a super big smile. Everybody's really enthusiastic. And also I wanted to thank our FIP WiSE chair, Claire Thompson. We worked hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder since a year also with our volunteers to come where we are. It's really, really exciting initiative that I really passionately work on, of course, among others. And also it's really good to, put some empathy. I mean, I'm neither in education nor in science, but as a pharmacist, I can really feel what my female colleagues needs in their area. I mean, they have distinct needs, but some of them are similar. So it's really nice to do something that you can put a lot of empathy in it. So that's something I'm really, really excited about.
No, it's awesome. Thank you for everybody, for you and for those that are also on the webinar as well, for all this effort. I know when Lucinda initially connected us, that was something that she brought to light as well in terms of your work in this space. And I think there's, like you said, there's so much power in supporting each other. And I think during the pandemic, it's even more important because women have been disproportionately affected in the workforce in terms of those that have had to leave the workforce for daycare or other issues. To take care of their children, rightfully so, but it's been very hard, specifically for women during this pandemic. So to be able to create those environments is so incredibly valuable. So thank you for doing that. And I think oftentimes you can never underestimate the power of just these types of conversations or giving those that need the resources to build their skills, maybe while they're not in the workforce, but having that sense of community is so incredibly powerful. So I like that as well in terms of what you're doing. So I'm so happy you're able to talk about it a lot more. I do want to also make sure we talk about some questions on leadership and mentorships, and then we can come back to any ones that we haven't covered. Also, as we're preparing for the audience, as we're preparing kind of end the conversations. We still have some questions, obviously, about leadership, but please, please, please feel free to put any questions that you might have in the Q&A box that you will find, and then we will get to those when we finish our set of questions. Now, the next set of questions is on leadership and mentorship. We ask all of our guest leaders a simple question on leadership, and it is, how do you describe a leader? You responded with the following: authenticity, trusting, instinct, mastering relationships, agility, and people-centric. Now, can you elaborate on this and really what has shaped this outlook for you?
I think leadership style really emerges and develops with your experience, because, you know, it all starts with leading yourself, your work, then leading people, and then leading an organization. So I'm more or less in the, you know, I learned I'm still learning to lead myself and my work, and also recently started to lead people as well. I'm not there in terms of, you know, leading an organization, but hopefully I would like to get there. And generally, if I look at my, you know, own attributes, I see myself as a servant leader. So that's why I think authenticity, being your own, you know, own style, and trusting your instincts, because it just complements authenticity, is really, really important for me to feel like I'm leading. And to me also, as a, you know, massive extroverted person, relationships are really important.
I think, are you still there, Nilhan? I cannot hear you. The screen looks like it is frozen on my end. Can everyone hear her okay? Can you write in the chat or the Q&A box if you can hear Nilhan? Oh, nope. Oh, it's frozen. Okay. Okay, yeah, we still can't hear anything. Nilhan, if you can hear us, looks like your screen is frozen and we can't hear anything. Oh, I think she'll probably try to join us again shortly. So please, yes, as we wait for Nilhan to come back, if you have any, oh, there she is, she's already back. There we go.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
You're totally fine. You froze a little bit, so we just, yeah. No, well, perfect. Okay. Yeah, it works again. We can hear you okay now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I was just telling about the leadership styles.
Yes.
And I was talking about relationships. The next one is, I think, the agility is important, because that's how I think you navigate through the challenges. Agility, I don't know how you can become agile. I think it's just you learn it with experience, and you learn with, you know, failures and challenges and conflicts. So I think the agility comes from there. And as someone that is early in her career, I think I'm just, you know, growing that muscle in recent years. And people-centeredness, as I said, it comes around being, I think, servant leader. So I always try to put people that I work with in the center of what I'm doing, because, you know, I try to put a lot of empathy in the work I do. Of course, sometimes work becomes a priority, but I always try to, you know, balance that. So, and I tend to get a lot of feedback from my line managers, mentors, to learn about these areas that I mentioned. So, you know, I can develop and learn about their success stories. And then I apply a combination that works for me. So that means authenticity to me. I'm open to make a lot of mistakes. I do a lot and I learn from them. And then I think this makes me authentic.
I really like that. So as you're thinking of, so that's how you define a leader, but when you think about leadership advice and lessons learned or items that you would provide others that are either currently leaders or aspiring leaders at all stages of their career, whether they're men or women, what are some, take-home messages there in terms of leadership advice?
Well, I think there is one thing that I learned is that leadership is not about establishing authority. There is a fine line between, leading people into your direction or guiding them into their own direction. So that has to be both ways, because, if you try to lead a work, but you also try to lead people, you have to find a common way for that. So that was a big advice I received. I mean, not that I try to establish authority, but, if I have an outlook of where I wanted to go, because, as you increase in ladders, things got a little bit more complicated. When I used to be an individual contributor, things are way much easier. But of course, now it's more exciting and the impact is bigger. So that just naturally happens. But, you have an objective and the other person has to meet that objective. So you really have to, balance that, and trying to do that without authority is going to be a master skill. I think I'll develop, but it's still on the go.
Nice. Yeah, recognizing, who the decision maker is, and is the decision maker you, and having that authority to make those changes. I think that's really powerful, and thinking about how you bring everyone along, right? How do you lead them versus guide them and tell them what to do? And I think oftentimes with leadership, it's kind of been that other conversation of, well, now I have the position and now I will tell you. And so I think a lot from what you're talking about takes the people, and to your definition of leadership is that people-centered approach. So now our final question before we open it up to Q&A and continuing the conversation, we do want to take an opportunity to support one another and recognize the positive influence we have on one another. Can you name a woman who's inspired you, and why did you choose this person? Although keeping in mind, you have done an amazing job throughout in terms of giving out the shout outs, and I've noticed that to those that deserve the credit. But if you were to just name one right now, who would it be?
Well, I mean, this is a very hard question, because there are so many amazing women that inspired me since I was a kid. So I put a lot of thought into that. But maybe, the safest way is to mention someone that is outside of this community, so I don't, finger point someone. I have a mentor. She's not a pharmacist. She's one of the leaders in a Turkish petrochemistry company, who supposed to be who has been my mentor, I think, very early times of my career, who supported me to my journey to for me to work abroad. So her name is Burcu Türkeş, is also a Turkish friend of mine. Why I choose her is because I think she has been through, we have shared a very common story. So she's really taken the steps where I wanted to go. So she committed a lot of time to me, many times, just to, giving me the perspective from writing an email for me to, get where I wanted to go. So she really, systematically helped me in getting my leeway to getting the door to these kind of experiences I have. And of course, giving opportunities, being empathetic, understanding, and not criticizing but supporting. So those were really, really big influences on me. And for example, for this experience I'm currently having with FIP, she really helped me in, the job interviews, trying to understand the value of the organization. So very, very, specific and naive type of support, without feeling, you become very vulnerable with a mentor. So I really wanted to thank Burcu. I don't know if she's watching, but I'll definitely share this with her. Probably she doesn't know that I'm mentioning her, but I saw she liked your posts where you put there. So I just wanted to, thank her. But as I mentioned, there are so many amazing women that supported me. Our CEO, Catherine Duggan, my colleagues, my volunteers, from every level, my mom, my sister-in-law. So there's so many people to mention, but I just wanted to mention as we started with the story of where I am at the moment and if I'm where I wanted to be, she was a massive unlocker for that journey.
You mentioned something too with, I think many guest leaders have also kind of mentioned in terms of who they've described is that person that's inspired does not have to have been in that same exact position that you're thinking about or be a pharmacist or have your specific background, but they can help you with very specific items like you mentioned, or it can be very broad in terms of inspiration. So even as you seek to understand your mentors and build that relationship, you can definitely have very diverse mentors. We had our last guest leader, Lani, who's actually not a healthcare provider, but because of the valuable insights that she has, we're able to bring in that conversation. So there's a lot of power to that. And I do also want to personally thank all those that are on here and your team for all the work that you are doing in this space, which is truly inspirational on our front. And it is always so wonderful to see women supporting women. Of course, we'd also like to see all, like you had mentioned, the campaign, all supporting women as well. So we do have a question here from an attendee that said, what is the first step for a new graduate to work abroad as a pharmacist within FIP? What would you advise?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what benefited me significantly is that I've taken a lot of extracurricular activities, like, doing internships, contributing to projects, working in a student association. Of course, if you're a recent graduate, then you're going to need some time to, do this maybe as an extracurricular activity. The best way for FIP is it's open to everyone. We don't tend to open a lot of positions, but with the work we are doing is the work we are doing is through our volunteers. So if you join the FIP community, you probably, and if you're interested, then you'll find your opportunity to be involved in a project and get to know the environment, have the network and see what kind of activities we are doing. So that generally is the way for getting into the FIP community. Of course, as I mentioned, FIP is a small organization. So for us to open opportunities, that doesn't happen very often. But nevertheless, we always create opportunities. For example, I'll finger points. We have Bidata, one of our participants at the moment. For example, we have been working on a project and she was an amazing volunteer to lead one of our work in digital health. So there are these kind of opportunities, and always, I'm open for anyone to, work in a project. We always need extra hands. So feel free to reach us out.
So there's another question on, I think, because you had mentioned earlier the part about being a servant leader, but the question reads, the word slave leader, which I'm assuming they meant servant leader, gives the impression that you are a slave to the worker. Do you think that this is a good leadership style? Maybe you want to elaborate on what you mean by servant leader.
Maybe. So servant leader is really, you serve to the people that you are working with. So this means you always support. If they have a need, you stop what you are doing and, supporting that person to learn, to find opportunities. Of course, servant leadership requires you to challenge in a healthy way the person, so that person learns. But generally, I always, for example, when I start with a new colleague in my team, I always have onboarding meetings, open conversations on ways of working, trying to find a balance, and always, create space in my calendar to, chat in a regular way to address needs, questions, help with, organizational politics, how you work with some colleagues. So I think it means you really allocate time for the support of your team members. This is what servant leadership means to me, and I think I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think there's that element of those that you work with obviously do not have to be in the same position as you, but you work with them and you incorporate their suggestions and their feedback within that. And I think that's often what we've talked about in previous sessions too, about what we're getting wrong, what we used to get wrong about leadership and how that changed in terms of, well, I'm the person of power, or I'm this quote unquote leader, or this person, so I will now tell you what you're going to be doing. Whereas now the tables have turned in the sense of, why don't we collectively, let's put positions onto the side and figure out what we can collectively do together and how we can support one another for the bigger picture, which is kind of beyond that whole, I am your boss or I am the authority. And so I think that breaks that down. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for clarifying that to some people, because I think sometimes the terminology is new to people, and it is a thought process. It's a mindset, like you were talking about before, in terms of, is your success just measured on your own ability to go up the ranks, or this kind of collective need to build everybody else up as well, which I think is a theme that's been consistent with our conversation as well. Now, we do only have a few more minutes, but are there any closing remarks or final thoughts that you would like to add to the conversation?
I see a question from the chat.
Oh, yes. Oh, perfect.
Should I respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it just popped up, and
yes.
maybe I'll just quickly respond to that and then close.
Please do.
Thanks for the question about, my move from pharmaceutical industry into an NGO. The dynamics are completely different because, pharmaceutical industry is a revenue-driven organization, where in NGO, you always have, of course, I mean, if I say people and patients in the center, maybe it might be misunderstood, but this is a non-profit organization. So maybe if I put it that way, that would be easy to understand. So that changed the dynamics and the goals you are working towards. So, I mean, I'm where I am because I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and I really find it more relevant to my own purpose to work in an NGO. But of course, for example, one day if I return to the pharmaceutical industry, it doesn't mean that I left pharmaceutical industry because I didn't find my purpose there. It's just an evolution of my career. The dynamics and the values are completely different, and you get different skills from out of it. I was advised to get an institutional experience at this level from one of my mentors, and I really appreciate that I get to have this opportunity. And I'll see where I translate a combination of the pharmaceutical industry and NGO in my next career period.
Okay, so we are now at 10 o'clock. So are there any final thoughts or things that you would like to mention before we close off?
Well, it was a really good conversation. I always like to, reflect on things. So thanks for the excellent set of questions. I really find it happy to answer them, and just did a lot of reflection on, myself, my work. And so thanks. I think you are conducting a great series of interviews with many women leaders. I also listened to some of them, and I'll keep listening to them because the holidays is coming. There's nothing else to do but just keep watching and staying at home. So thanks for giving everyone the opportunities, and wanted to thank the participants who stayed with us, for some of them which were really late. So I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, Rola.
Of course. Oh my, I'm seeing so many great comments too in terms of how inspirational it was. It was definitely a great conversation. Various different elements of inspiration and action and being intentional and having that mindset, that growth mindset, which is very important. On behalf of Salus Vitae Group and myself, I would like to thank you for joining us today and for sharing your experiences and outlooks. This has been absolutely wonderful. I know from what I've seen from the comments, it's been great for everyone as well. If you haven't, again, already done so, all of our recordings are available on our website, which is salusvitaegroup.com, SALUSVITAE group.com. And then we are going to have our final one for 2020 tomorrow. So if you are interested in attending, also register on our website. Again, thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at our next event. And for those that aren't going to join us, happy holidays. And here's to hoping 2021 is better. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have an enjoyable and safe holidays.